Hello, this is Crystal Meach with Tao of the Heart, and today I have Sherry Morgan with me, and she has created Love is Round. And so we're just going to dive right in, like I always do, and I'm going to ask Sherry, how did you come up with Love is Round?
Thank you, Crystal. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So I didn't come up with Love is Round. I
Okay.
was shown Love is Round in my prayers one morning in 2015. And um, so what I was shown was that love is round is the design of our universe, and therefore us too. Everything in the universe is created in a field of round love. So we know round when we look at a universe design, for example, right? Or every planet or star, or everything is round because it's created in round field, round energy. And round is relational, reciprocal, uh, you could say equal, things are equal in a round. And the love part is the experiential. So I've come to see that love is a word, and I could say, I love you as a declaration with no evidence. It's just a declaration. Or anybody could say, I love you as a declaration. And then love is round could be an act, like an act of love. I do something kind for you. You could say that's an act of love. We could say love could be an action, love could be a word, and then love could be an experience. And we've all had experiences of love. But what my gift is to help people experience, uh, let's say, spiritual love. So when we connect our spirit with the spirit alive in nature, or alive, yeah, let's say in nature, um, that experience is reciprocally loving. People say, "Oh my God." I mean, sometimes people just burst into tears when they experience it. And sometimes one guy was in ecstasy for quite a while. Um, we experience joy. Um, sometimes, so what I'm alluding to is I was guided to teach people about prayer, and the core basis of prayer in an indigenous context is the experience of connection with the object of our prayer. So in my case, I would teach people or start with things that are more easier to relate with: a plant, a rock, a tree, a stream, lake, ocean, um, those sorts of things. And what people would say often is, "Oh my God, that tree loves me," or "I'm in the tree and the tree's in me." Like there's no separation. So this field, and we all know, all the spiritual teachers tell us we're all one, we're all connected, but we usually don't experience it. So my job in teaching people about prayer is to teach them what's in the way of our experience of connection and how to get that out of the way so that we can experience connection. And then after 15 years of teaching is when Love is Round showed up in my prayers. And I realized, I was shown it was a design of our world. I was also shown it's an explanation for that experience of connection. So that's how Love is Round. And then my website became Love is Round. And now I'm writing a book called Love is Round.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit more about your journey? Like, how you came to um, just experience this?
Well, gosh, there's so many ways to approach that. But what comes to mind, um, so I lived, uh, I'm in my 70s. And so I grew up in a very colonialized worldview. And my grandfather was a minister. So I grew up going to Sunday school in an Anglican church. And so my whole worldview was, white, I'd say probably lower middle class, uh, every, whatever, go to all the things from
Yeah,
a long time ago in my lifetime
sure.
that I grew up with. And then in 1982, I had what I call a spiritual calling experience. And in that experience, um, what I experienced was the hand of God reached into a sea of people and picked me up with thumb and forefinger, lifted me over the heads of the sea of people, and set me down outside of it. And that's all that happened. But my life was no longer the same. I was compelled. Mm, it awakened a need for spirit. And then I started getting what I would call urges, and I'd get urge here and urge there, and go do this and change that and whatever. And so I for 42 years now, I just keep following those urges, and they've led me into some really interesting territory. But I want to share. So I later learned, 15 years later, I learned that it wasn't God, like the God, that gave me that experience. I learned that it was a sacred mountain in Mexico. And that sacred mountain uh, showed me um, that I was a Nahuatl young woman 500 years ago, when the colonizers in Mexico from Spain were, essentially convert or die. and our old sacred traditions were being obliterated, and our people were being killed. And so me and two young women friends back then, I learned, journeyed on our own accord to our local sacred mountain, which was probably a couple of days' journey, and went to our local sacred mountain and said, "Can you see what's happening? Will you help us?" And our local sacred mountain told us it's not time yet, and disappeared us. We never came back to our village. This lifetime, that sacred mountain brought the three of us together again. How I'm going to say he figured that out, I don't know. But anyway, we all ended up in Mexico with the same teacher, and that teacher, through an elder Huichol shaman, put us together and said, "You've got to do some work, and then you got to start a pilgrimage cycle to this mountain." So that mountain showed us who we were 500 years ago, and what that lifetime has to do with this lifetime. So from in my case, we lost our connection to the sacred when the colonizers arrived. We lost our traditions, and we lost that way of staying connected with the sacred. This lifetime, my job is to help people get back to the connection with the sacred.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So anyway, so
And
I talk to people about prayer and connection, and then the love is around thing happened, and so that's kind of how that all happened.
um and can you talk a little bit about prayer? Like, how do you see prayer?
Well, when I teach a workshop about prayer, I don't say what prayer is. I ask everybody, what is prayer to you? It's an exploration. So, um, what's really salient, I think, what's really the most potent way to learn is experientially. So I ask the participants, what is prayer to you? And everybody says whatever they say. And usually there's some notion of communication. And so let's start there. And and then we do some experiential work, like short experiential things. And lead people to see that communication is not nearly as effective as conversation. So I lead people to see that we want a response. We don't want like prayer not just to be a one way, which when I was a kid it was just a one way, right? You memorize some prayers or
Mhm.
whatever, and you throw them out
Yeah.
there, and I hope somebody catches them. And I'm not saying not it. I'm not saying that I'm alone there. I think lots of people probably did experience connection, but I didn't happen to, or at least I don't remember. Maybe I was too young. So I teach people to experience the connection and the conversation aspect, so that they know when they've connected, what that feels like, and then when we're connected, then we can get guidance. So prayer, you could say, I what I in the book that I wrote, which prayers of gratitude. Um, relate so what we so you could say that prayer is a petition, or one aspect of prayer is a petition, to make a petition for help, say. It works the same way as with humans, in that I have very little relationship with you, Crystal, at this point. We just
Yeah.
met in person, sort of online today,
Yeah.
email a few days ago. And so
Mhm.
we don't know a lot about each other. We're just getting to know one another. So I could maybe
Yeah.
ask you a favor of, may I have the recording of this after, and that would probably be an acceptable
Yeah.
request based on the
Of
kind of
course.
relationship we have, right? But I couldn't
Yeah.
ask you. I don't have enough relationship to ask you. Um, could you lend me $1,000? Would you mind?
Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I don't have that kind of relationship, right? But there are some people I could ask that because I have sufficient relationship and they trust me or whatever. So it works the same way
Sure.
with spirit. So
Okay.
we need to build relationship first. And as I think I mentioned already, what I help people connect their spirit to the spirit of are aspects of nature, like that we can relate with easily, like a local plant or tree, or a rock, or maybe even a hill or a small mountain or a stream or grandmother ocean. I live near the ocean. And then so we can actually build relationship with those things, those aspects of
Right.
nature, fairly easily.
Yes.
And one of the ways to do that is prayers of gratitude. It's a brilliant way to do that, actually. So if I have a favorite tree, I could go sit under it, or I could just go look at it and start thanking it for everything I can think of to thank it for. And uh, so this was an Ojibwa elder, became my first prayer teacher, and she gave me a format for prayers of gratitude that I went out every morning for an hour or more, and every night before bed for an hour or more, and did nothing but give thanks to aspects of nature that I could see, witness, or think of. And it completely upended my notion of prayer, what I'd grown up with, and transformed my life. So I think most of us know by now that our thoughts are super influential and can take us down. Can We can die if we stay
Yeah.
in really negative thoughts for a long time, right? Or we can be
Oh
in
yeah.
joy. And so
Mm.
one of the things that I think is really, really important, and that I had to do some study myself before I started teaching, and one of the people I learned from, his name is Dr. Umberto Maturana. He's a Chilean biologist, got his degree in the United States. And he says it's a different world for each observer. There is no world out there for us all to agree on. and the world that we relate to is the world we language. So that's all the aspects of the world, right? We have a story about everybody we know, and we have a story about our city and our country and our world, and all bits and pieces of it, and all those stories form our form who we are really, and our worldview, and how we relate with each other, or
Mm-hmm.
our world, or our future, our prospects, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
prayers of gratitude, especially extensive prayers of gratitude, gives you an incredible new world to live in. So a world that's full of abundance and beauty and all the gifts that each of these beings give us. And it kind of gets us unhooked from the cultural worldview that we grew up with. So I
Yep.
myself was plagued with negative thinking before I took on prayers of gratitude, and my world just totally transformed. I was so joyous. I would literally skip down the street. I was in my 50s at the time. Skip down the street singing out loud. Uh, anyway, I just highly, highly recommend prayers of gratitude, nature gratitude. I'm starting to, because the word prayer triggers some people. I'm starting to just say nature gratitude. Express nature gratitude. Gratitude to nature. It's highly transformative, builds relationships, and then we can pray. Well, gratitude is a prayer, a very important kind of
Mm-hmm.
prayer. And then we could ask, well, gee, can you help me find my path? Could
Yes, you were doing very well.
okay, so there is another piece if you wanted to ask when we get going again. Um,
Just let me just stop for a second because, um, when you were talking about your experience of, just being in nature and talking to nature and giving gratitude, and about how you're, sometimes when you first start doing this, you don't necessarily get an answer back. Um, and I can certainly speak to that because in my own experience, when I would start going to, I would just go to a park and just go walk around. And I would start to speak just in my head, like gratitude, like as I was seeing the trees, thank you for this experience, or thank you for the clouds.
very good.
uh,
The tree and
yeah. And, and then, and there's a woman that I worked with, and her name was Rebecca Rose. She was a healer from Alaska. And her readings would come back and they would say, the trees are waiting for you. And why haven't you come? Because, I'd have like something going on. And so, um, for me, it was like a realization that the trees do need you. Like the nature, there's a higher intelligence, um, that needs you. And, as you start to foster that relationship with whatever you want to call it, um, you start to, you're almost like a satellite for the information to start coming. And so I just wanted to reflect that back to you. Like, so I too believe that, you can foster this relationship with nature, and there is a higher intelligence and a realization that you are supported even when you feel alone. So I guess from that point, I ask you, um, where, when someone is, say, they're stuck in a corporate career and maybe a family, and maybe, um, they're waking up to a life that they were conditioned to live, and maybe an understanding that there is more. Where do they go from there?
Great question, and also great speaking about your experiences in nature. Um, yes, so nature is alive and sentient and able and willing to help us. Oftentimes, we need prayer to get that help. Some of us, like me and maybe you, were kind of, some people, some spiritual teachers say we all came here with a particular mission. I think that's true. Um, some say that we have to ask. The gods are waiting for us to ask. They won't intervene. In my case, they intervened. I had a particular path to walk, and I guess I agreed to it. I didn't remember, of course, but and so they, picked me up and said, "You're going to get started now." so,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So now, and I think that happens to probably quite a few people. But in other cases, if people, for example, are, and I reached that place in my corporate career too, where I didn't know about prayer yet, but I reached a kind of what I would call a pinnacle of success in to me in the corporate world. And I got to that place where, is this all there is? Like, is that all you can aspire to, is a house and a car and a corner office with a view? I mean, I got there, but I didn't, like, it wasn't very satisfying. It wasn't deeply satisfying. So, yeah. So for sure, I recommend prayers of gratitude. And I recommend prayers of gratitude to nature, not for nature. So lots of people will go out and say, thank you for the trees, or just at home. Thank you, God, for the trees. Thank you for the birds. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my job. Thank you for whatever, right? But my, my suggestion, my strong suggestion is thank you to the trees and the birds and the plants and the ocean and the clouds, and thank you. And then connect with them and look, what can I be grateful for to that tree? And then that tree, which is different, maybe this is an apple tree. All of them clean our air, all of them hold our earth together, all of them are beautiful. And then apple trees give apples, and cedar has medicine, certain kinds of medicine, and so on and so on, right? And so if we look and spend a little, just even a half a minute looking to the clouds in in a commitment of gratitude, we will discover things. Because a lot of people think, well, the clouds, it's a cloudy day, it's a shitty day, or it's raining, it's a shitty day, or we don't live without that rain. Nothing lives without that rain. So how can we establish a different relationship with all these aspects of nature that are more compatible, more relational, more appreciative? And then we discover, like you're pointing to, that nature can speak back to us and nature can help us and will. And we may need to ask, but let's be respectful and build relationship first. And one of the beautiful ways of building relationship is gratitude. If I'm appreciative for the gifts that whatever that thing is, that thing is way more likely to want to help me. Right? I mean, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Same way with humans. So, um, now what was your question again about how, because I think I went off on
Well,
a
I
little
guess
bit of,
that's okay. No, my question was for those people, and you kind of spoke to it, like you and I, where we get to the career where it's like, is this all that there is, or it's yanked from us, or something happens in our experience where we know that there's a higher intelligence, and it's kind of like a choice point of are you going to take this path, or are you going to go back into the matrix, I guess I call it. So I guess for those listeners, what 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 do you say to them? I
that's
mean,
a
like, I
super
encounter them
important,
every day, so.
that's a super important question. I think that from my own experience, I would say that spirit is calling all of us now. Like, let's get back with the program. Let's get that we're actually spiritual beings and this is a spiritual world. And oh, by the way, spirit can help us in ways that we just haven't even dreamt of yet. But spirit knows what our calling is, what we're here to accomplish or learn. And and they I think they want nothing more than for us to get on our rightful path. And ultimately, I think we want nothing more than to get on our rightful path because it's where our joy is, where our passion is, and our well-being. Because we can enjoy our job and get paid well, but get burned out. For example, I know lots of people who are really burning out, and I think it's important, and spirit can help us find our path. So the formula, I would say, is once you recognize that, like you're pointing to, Crystal, about you get to that point where is this all there is, or is this what I'm really here for, or whatever that question is that we ask.
Mhm.
My invitation is to recognize that spirit is alive in nature, in all aspects of nature. Maybe people have a special spot in nature that they just feel, I don't know, a kind of resonance with. Maybe there's a particular tree, maybe the ocean, maybe people have a real resonance with clouds sometimes, or whatever it is, right? Maybe start there, because if you feel a resonance, that something feels a resonance back for you, to you as well, because it's the feeling that is the experience of connection. So, and you can cultivate that experience with other aspects of nature. But if you've already got something that you feel a connection with, a resonance, an appreciation, start there and just say, I think, I mean, I just said a couple of minutes ago that nature wants us to get on our path, wants to help us. So if we say, I really want to know what my purpose is, I really want to know I really want to know that I'm loved. I really want to know that there's guidance for me, and I need to be shown how, because I'm lost in this world of, the corporate world or whatever it is, or I'm
Mhm.
entangled in these relationships that aren't very healthy for me, or and I really need help to find the way out, to find my way to joy, to find my way to my calling, my purpose, fulfill my purpose, find my joy. Spirit will help us. Stay attentive, stay appreciative. Whenever you get, sometimes it's hard to recognize in the beginning what is guidance versus what's my mind. One of the things that I help people to see is that our minds are will quickly make up a story, and it might be a completely disempowering story. Like we get an insight, we get an intuition, we get a bit of guidance, and the mind immediately comes in and makes up some, because the mind wants to stay in control, right? So if we can begin to catch that nanosecond maybe of insight or experience of what I might call love, for example, that connection experience. If we could just not label it or remove the label, like allow it to foster and grow, maybe next time it'll be 2 nanoseconds or a full second or 5 seconds or whatever, but we can nurture, we can play with that and nurture that and let that grow. And when we're ready, and nature spirit will help us, show us how to grow it. And um yeah, I don't know, did I answer your question? So
Yeah.
it's about relationship, it's about persistence, it's about knowing that the mind doesn't want to lose control, because that's been hundreds of years in the development. Culturally, we're just steeped in the right way to be is mind. By the way, I read of a little experiment. So some group was trying to figure out what is genius, and or how to capture genius, or how to recognize genius, something around that. And they started with 5 year olds and gave them problem solving things. And the 5 year olds scored 95% genius levels. They gave these same experiments to 10 year olds. It went down to 30 something percent genius. 15 year olds down to, like, I don't know, 15% or something, 20%, whatever it was. So I think we're geniuses, and we're all connected, and we all have our intuition and our, spiritual radar as young children, and it gets trained out of us. It's our mind that gets trained. Think this way. This is the right answer. This is the right belief. This is the right way to do things, whatever. And then we gradually lose that spark of intuition. So we need to recognize the difference, the signature of mind versus the signature of spiritual connectedness and insight and intuition and guidance. It's a different flavor. And often the mind is righteous, um, rational. Oh no, you shouldn't follow your heart. You'll you won't have any friends anymore or something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's get back to our genius, and our genius is where our joy is, and our satisfaction for life, and our participation with life the way we're meant to.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I can see in my own life how the mind is constructed a certain way. Like, you talk about culture or, upbringing, all of that. And then as children, we consent to that in some way, even if it's we don't really know consciously. I mean, subconsciously, we take on these constructs, and then, decades later, you're in a career and you're like, what is going on? And then I think you kind of wake up to, hey, I built this construct. And in some ways, people blame others, but the truth is that you took it on yourself. And
We
then
subscribed. We
there's a
subscribed.
third,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
And
there were
then,
consequences if we
so then,
didn't.
yeah.
Yeah. This is
And,
why I say it's like we go blaming ourselves because there was, to fit in,
right. Like,
get a good mark in school, to prevent being detained at home for a week and not being able to go outside and play, all the different ways that there were consequences if we didn't toe the line. We learned to toe the line.
yeah. And so it seems like it's blame outside, then it's the self blame, and then you move past both the blame outside and inside toward beyond the duality, I'll say. Um, and then you realize kind of that, like you were saying, working with the ego, and you almost have to befriend that ego because it's there to protect you and it's doing its job. It's just doing a really good job.
Well, it's doing its job very well, and some things that it does keep us alive. So we
Yeah.
need to, it teaches us how to use computers or talk on Zoom calls or whatever, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
there's some useful aspects of mine, but when it comes to the experience of connection with heart, from heart to heart of the world, or heart to heart of the tree, or whatever you call it, as opposed to mine, it's the culprit
Hmm.
in the way. So we just need to learn, like, healthy mind versus in the way of my joy mind, you could say, or my
Yeah.
fulfillment, or my fulfilling my purpose, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will have all
Beautifully
kinds of
put.
reasons because the mind has reasons, right? So, our heart
Yes.
might say, okay, well, don't hang out with this particular person because they always bring you down. Oh, but the mind will say, oh, yeah, but you can't let that person go. You can't, you've been their friend for 30 years. So the mind will talk us out of what the heart knows. And we need to be able to see the difference. And this is a different flavor. And then it's a
Hmm.
choice, like you're saying, like, yeah, okay, it's my choice. Am I going to find my joy? Am I going to follow my purpose? Am I going to fulfill that's that higher self part of me? Or am I going to stay at a more base level? Because the mind will keep you at a base level and the heart will take you to a higher frequency. And you were pointing to, I want to come this back to this. You were pointing to how the world needs us. It's not just we need us to get this level of frequency and build these relationships, and because the world, trees and plants and ocean and so on, can help us. We help them.
Hmm.
So the sacred mountain that showed me love is round and asked me to start a movement, that mountain has a purpose too, like trees have a purpose and so on and so on. Well, this particular sacred mountain's purpose is protector of creation. Creation is round love. The design of creation is round love, round reciprocal relational love, equal love. We're all in it. That mountain needs us to fulfill its purpose. It will be the guide and the wisdom, but it needs us. It and the trees need us. And when we give gratitude, we build our own frequency. We build the frequency in the tree as well, or the ocean, or the clouds, or so it is a reciprocal deal. It's not, it's we're raising the frequency of the world when we raise our own frequency, and especially when we raise our frequency in relation to the world. So it is
Yeah.
probably, I think, like you're talking about the dualistic world, There's many bandages. People could choose to support, I don't know, homeless people, or they could choose to support ancient forests, or they could choose to support elderly people, or they could choose to support the people in a war-torn country. I mean, there's zillions of ways to contribute on the planet, and it's all great. It's all good. The planet needs a lot of, people all over the place need a lot of support. I think underneath all of that, you pointed to the dualistic world. We heal the dualistic world when we heal the separation between, like, I'm better than or I'm worse than. I'm a bad person, that's a good person. When we heal all of that and get back into this experience of round love, where we're all equal, it's relational, we're all here to do our part, then that heals that dualistic worldview. And eventually, I mean, I think that could take a few lifetimes, but let's work on it. Let's do what we can in this lifetime and become a new role model for our children and our grandchildren and nieces and nephews, God knows who, even our friends, and begin to build this world where it's our ticket back to the garden. I think is to get to experience and to keep building on that experience of round love connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't have the wars, and we don't have the conflicts, and we don't have the prejudices between different kinds of people and all that sort of stuff. Eventually.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for coming
So
on my show.
you're very welcome.
And
Thank you so much for doing your show and for helping our world with different perspectives to live into.
yeah, yeah, and I so appreciate. I would love to have you on again and explore more. And
Indeed.
yeah, love is around. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Um, and yeah, we'll see
So
you
can I
next
just
time on Tao of the Heart. Oh, is there
thank
anything
you.
else you wanted to
Oh, I
say?
just wanted to say, if people want to check out, it's loveisround.net is the website.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I'll put all of your information in the description box below so that people can reach out to you.
beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you,
Beautiful.
Crystal.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Bye bye.